Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at a sweet fortified wine from southern France. So this is a Vin du Naturel. The wine is from Domaine Cazes. It's a Rivesaltes Grenat and the vintage is 2017. So this is here in a half bottle. Now Domaine Cazes is a long established family owned estate in Rousillon, so we're sort of between the Pyrenees and the Mediterranean Sea. The estate was established by Michel Cazes in 1895. By the 1950s it had grown to be about 40 hectares in size, and in 1955 the family decided to start bottling and selling wine under their own label. Today the estate is still owned by the Cazes family. Emmanuel Cazes, who took over in 1997, one of his first acts was to start the process of converting the estate to organic and biodynamic viticulture. It was fully completed with certification for both organics and biodynamics in 2005. They refer to 4 biodynamic principles, principally the use of biodynamic preparations such as horn dung and horn silica, which are dung and silica that are buried in the ground for about a year and then diluted and spread on the vines to help energize the soils. And along with those, the use of compost. So that's principle number 1, the preparations. Principle 2 is dynamizing, and this is the idea of diluting preparations with large amounts of water and then sort of activating those by stirring them until you've got a vortex in them. The next principle is that of respecting cosmic rhythms and trying to work alongside them. And the final principle is the idea of trying to maintain living organisms around the vine. The estate now has 220 hectares in total, and they have 12 different varieties that they work with. The wines they make are a variety of table wines and sweet fortified wines. They make wine in Côte de Roussillon Village, Fitou, Maury, Muscat de Rivesaltes and Rivesaltes. So Rivesaltes, which we're looking at today, is a fortified wine made predominantly from Grenache. There are several different sorts of Rivesaltes, and this is one labelled as Grenat. So a Grenat is a wine that has to be made entirely from Grenache noir. The other sorts of Rivesaltes, Rosé, Ombre and Tuile, can include not only Grenache noir but also Grenache gris, Grenache blanc and the white varieties Macabeo and Tourbat. This particular wine comes from low yielding, quite old vines, 30-year-old vines, giving yields of no more than 20 hectolitres per hectare. And the soils are a predominantly clay limestone soil, so with good water holding capacity, which is good in a relatively dry area like this, with these soils containing schistose material and siliceous pebbles. The grapes are hand-picked, they're destemmed and crushed. Fermentation goes on at 28 degrees C, so that will need to be being cooled slightly. But by keeping the temperature of fermentation down to a maximum of 28 degrees, that stops it being too extractive and pulling too much in the way of tannin out of the fruit. While the grapes are still fermenting, a neutral spirit is added to stop the fermentation, and this leaves a sugar level of about 90 to 95 grams per litre, with an alcohol level of 16%. It's worth noting that this process is different, for instance, from the way that you'd make a port, in that the spirit is being added while the skins are still there, and actually the skins stay macerating with the spirit present, and the spirit's going to be an extractant for a week prior to the wine being drained. Unlike the other types of Rivesaltes, the Grenat has to be aged reductively. It's not oak aged, it's protected from oxidation to try and maintain as much of the beautiful fresh fruit that the wine has, and it has to be bottled within 12 months of harvest. And then they make it quite clear that the bottles are stored in temperature controlled cellars. Now I think the reason for mentioning that is that there is a tradition in this part of Roussillon of aging wines in glass bonbons in the sun, giving a sort of a maderized style. This isn't. This is trying to maintain a really clean, perfumed red fruit in the wine. So let's see what we make of it, shall we? There's quite a nice dark ruby colour there. It's not really particularly purple and it's not particularly deep either. I mean, while there's a sort of a dark edge to the redness, I can see through it really easily. As I swirl the wine, it's high in sugar, it's high in alcohol, it's forming some quite thick tears quite slowly on the side of the glass there. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? you have two aspects there. One is a very juicy red fruit. It's sort of mulberry, it's juicy red cherry, juicy raspberry, that sort of note. And the other is a sort of a spiritiness that's almost coming through as an anise note. It doesn't seem particularly harsh, but certainly it's giving a high-toned and quite warming note. So let's have a taste. On the palate, that's fully sweet, but not incredibly luscious. There's a certain amount of bitter tannic grip there. There is a lovely, clean, juicy fruit that's actually being accentuated by the sweetness on the tip of my tongue. And I'm getting all that sort of juicy cherry, juicy mulberry, juicy raspberry note. But then you move on to a sort of a more rich, ripe note of almost sort of slight stewed plum, almost getting to a hint of sweet licorice just by the tip of my tongue. The wine is at best medium bodied. I mean, it's got a reasonable structure and the alcohol's lending it some weight, but it's not particularly dense. The fruit is fresh, it's lively, it's really quite simple. Looking at our aggregated critic score for this vintage of this wine, it's only scoring an 85 out of 100. And I can see that maybe the wine's simplicity has led to it getting that score. I think I'd possibly score it 2 or 3 points higher than that, because I think the wine has nice balance, the flavour's lasting well, the spirit isn't dominating the fruit. There's enough fresh fruit to last right through to the finish, where there's actually a little of that licoricey concentration. I think this is a quite straightforward but well made and well balanced that might make a lovely accompaniment for a meal of bread and cheese or something like that, where its sweetness would play really nicely against a more savoury backdrop. I don't think it's particularly a wine for aging. I think it's going to lose those beautiful primary fruit aromas if you keep it for too long, but I also doubt it's a wine that there's any rush to drink up. There are styles of Rivesaltes, the longer age, the hors it can be aged for 20, 30, 40 years. I don't think that this is one of those. So thank you so much for watching. I do hope you found the tasting of interest. If you've enjoyed it, please press the like button. If you'd like to watch more of these tastings, it would be fantastic for us if you'd sign up and subscribe to our channel, and that way you can set yourself an alert and be notified every time we publish a new tasting video. If you have any feedback that you'd like to leave, do pop that in the comments box below. We'd be interested to hear what you have to say about the wines we're looking at, the tastings we're doing, or anything else related to that. If you have any friends you think might like to watch the video, it would be fantastic if you'd consider forwarding it to them. We'd really appreciate that endorsement. But whatever you do, I do hope you'll try and make some time, come and join us for another tasting in the very near future. Thanks again. Bye for now.